I am the descendant of immigrants from northwestern Europe and the Isles comprising Ireland and the United Kingdom. My Celtic roots are very deep and very strong, and the pagan path is one that I've embraced and found it fulfilling. For me, this time of year is called Lunasta. Lunasta is the time when the sun reaches 15 degrees of Leo, if you're a Druid. It's one of the Sabbats that's known as the cross quarters. On the Celtic Wheel of the Year, these were the fire Sabbats because they were tied to a lunar occurrence rather than a solar event, the equinox and the solstice. These signal the start of a season, with the solar Sabbat being in the midpoint of the season. So we are now at the start of the autumn season. When you look at the Wheel of the Year, the spoke opposite Lunasa is Imbolc, the beginning of February, which is the start of the spring season. Both these Sabbats are a time of preparing. Imbolc is for preparing when the sun returns. It reminds us that the days are going to grow warmer. Lunasta, in honor of Lu, the Celtic god of the setting sun, reminds us the days grow shorter, and we prepare for the time when Brigid rests. Well, it is that time of year, spring to fall. We prepare for the days when Brigid rests, and now is the time for gathering the bounty grown during the long days to carry us through the time when the nights are long. My reflection came to me as I was thinking about this, and it's a simple little event that I wanted to share, but it spoke to the heart of the spirit that ties the web of life onto the Wheel of the Year. Earlier this spring, soon after Imbolc, I was looking out my front window, and I noticed a squirrel in my front garden space, digging furiously, and I thought, what the heck, stashing stuff? It's not uncommon for me to see little animals in my front yard. Frankly, I encourage it because my backyard's full of big dogs who don't appreciate little animals like I do. So I tend to put treats out for him. Well, I noticed he was bearing a kernel of corn he had plucked from a dried cob of corn that he drug over from my neighbor's yard, and he's planting in my garden space, and come mid-April when the sun had warmed the ground, I had 7 stalks of corn growing in my, and I found it so humorous, I decided to let them go. The other stalks appeared in my grass, but they fell victim to the lawnmower. It just was. So over the summer, I have 7 stalks are grown, 5 because I have deer that visit during the night, and those other 2 are rather tasty. So my granddaughter and I have eagerly watched these ears of corn begin to show and grow larger. So now I have 7 ears of corn on the remaining stalks, ripening to be harvested for the winter to feed my squirrels in my yard the fruits of their labor. Even nature knows to prepare. So I'm going to close with a poem that's the Song of Lunasa. I am the sovereign splendor of creation. I am the fountain in the courts of bliss. I am the bright surrender of the willpower. I am the watchful guardian and the kiss. I am the many-colored landscape. I am the transmigration of the geese. I am the burnished glory of the breastplate. I am the harbor where all striving cease. Lady of the land, open the door. Lord of the forest, come you in. Let there be welcome to your bountiful compassion. Let there be welcome to the autumn of the year. In fruit and grain you are traveling, in ferment and bread you arrive. We know that every grain and seed is a record of ancient time, a promise of all that's yet to be, and what I claim as mine. As grapes shall change to become wine, I change in the cauldron of life. I'll drink of wine, the wine of enchantment, and learn from the lessons of strife. Within all forms is locked the path of future, present, past. The ancient ones who spin our fate lay blessings on us at last. Having planted once my future goals, they now come to fruition. I spoke aloud and the goddess heard, giving birth to my ambition. In concert work and concert weave new patterns to my life. I open heart to greatest good and banish pain and strife. On Lunasa now I reach to the sky, my faith on solid ground. I welcome harvest to my life where blessings shall abound. By oak and grain, and wheat and corn, by air, fire, water, and earth, by chalice and sword, and hoof and horn, a harvest is now burst. So mote it be.
For me, it's about the light. My name is Susan Jellinger. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Gotta think about that sometimes. So Lammas, like Imbolc, is that cross-quarter holiday halfway between solstice, equinox, as Pam was saying. It's that time of the year when I really begin to notice that the light has changed. The days are growing shorter. And that sun, when it comes up in the morning over in my Chautauqua neighborhood, it's peeking through the trees, coming over the rooftops, it's a little bit later each day. And the evening hours come a little quicker. Beautiful summer hours, aren't they? Great nights with the stars starting to come out. But it comes a little bit later. That sun in the morning, and the moon in the evening is a little earlier. I find I also naturally sleep longer in the morning, unless I've set the alarm. So, at Lammas, it's about the changing light that grabs my attention. Now, as a kid, I would race that light at night because I had to get home before the street lights got on. That was my curfew. And then as a young adult, that August 1st time, it's the last month of summer vacation. I've got so much I need to still do, so much I want to get done. Later, I had jobs to finish up, and I got to make enough money to keep things going, get stuff ready for school. School. A little bit of anticipation starts churning up during August, getting back to regular routine. Although I didn't think I liked it, I really did. Now, as an adult, I've encountered and experienced a variety of nature-based life paths. Like Pam, I'm a member of Sacred Bridges Cups, but I've been involved with other pagan communities also throughout my life. And here at First Unitarian, involved with classes like Cakes for the Queen of Heaven, and some that we've done experiential Wicca, Tarot classes. I've also been involved with Back to Nature Friends and environmental groups. I remember back, and it's still around, Mother Earth News, Alumni Hall at Iowa State. We'd be making organic lunches and soups and breads. Back to the Earth, going to help friends who were building their new home out of an old barn. Back to the Earth. And it's kind of amazing. All these faith systems, all these experiences really started for me through my early Catholicism, because there were groups of people who were starting to gather and pray and work to be good stewards of the land. So some kernels were sprouted in me at that time too. And now I have my time in women's spirituality and the Sacred Bridges Cup group, so I celebrate Lammas. And I know it is a special time. It's a beginning, more so than in January in the calendar year. It's a beginning of the end and a beginning of the beginning. It's a part of that wheel of the year. So I guess there's beginnings and endings all the time. It's a celebration of the first harvest of grains. I'm not one that harvests any grains. However, I am a small plot gardener. I have an area of about 3 feet by 8 next to my house, so pretty small. And yet, I've had enough cucumbers coming out of that and arugula that I get to share it with my neighbors and friends. So I do celebrate a little bit of harvest with that. Throughout this whole time, I'm gratefully aware of the bounty of earth and this time of explosion of my peppers are really plumping out. They're changing color. It's fun to see all of that. However, Lammas isn't just about the harvest for me. It's about listening. The changes and how it sounds with the leaves now, the winds coming through. Listening to other people's stories about their vacations, their gardens, things that are happening, their families. Telling some of my own. It's also about retelling and re-listening to some of the myths and traditions that go around with summer. How many of you have had to endure some of that at reunions this year? Mm-hmm. So I do honor the wheel of the year, this way of circling around our sun. And in the last couple years, because just like this is the backside of the year, I'm on the backside of my cancer journey. So I'm really aware of time and so appreciate it. Seeing those little bit of changes. And Lammas for me is a time to remember, take stock. Take stock of what I've done and think of what I yet want to do, what I need to complete. And then, because I'm just me, that means I also do it with song, and one I like to do. I thank the earth for feeding my body. I thank the sun for warming my bones. I thank the trees for the air I breathe, and I thank the water for nourishing my soul. May you all have a light-filled, wonderful Lammas.
My mind is one with the air. Hungry and trusting, my mind is one with the earth. Eating the fruit, my body is one with the earth. These words by Wendell Berry remind me of the time of year that we are in. Its mixture of uncertainty and trust say that we don't know what is in store for us. We long for the outcome, but cannot yet be sure of it. Yet despite this uncertainty, we're willing to stay the course and see the harvest to its end. And in this time, I look back on my own growing season and incoming harvest as a pagan and a Unitarian Universalist. When I was a young teenager was when I planted my seeds as a pagan. And in rural southern Iowa, this meant that I planted and tended them mostly on my own. The first time I celebrated Lammas was in the brushy pasture beyond my backyard where I grew up. With an altar made from old scrap wood, I walked down the dusty cow paths as far into the timber as I could. Past the sprawling clumps of red cedar and hedge, I found my quiet circle, a crossroads where year after year the animals living in that field had crossed each other's paths. Calling the elements and setting my altar, I began to pray, to meditate, to listen, to hope that maybe the gods would come to me. And it felt like I heard nothing. Only the birds whirring, only the crickets chirping, the grass rustling, only the evident. I finished my ritual, left a little unsettled and maybe even disappointed, certainly confused. While the years of my adolescence continued to ripen, I kept honoring the wheel of the year and its holy days as best I could. But truthfully, I was often unsure what this harvest would yield. It could very well be all chaff and no grain. And with no open pagans in my world at the time, it was so hard to tell. It was about this time on the crossroads between high school and college that I heard about Unitarian Universalism. Other than a joke or two about Unitarians on the Prairie Home Companion, the earliest I remember hearing about our tradition was actually in Margot Adler's Drawing Down the Moon, where she reviews and explores the history of paganism in the United States. In it, she made a point of discussing the covenant of Unitarian Universalist pagans, noting that our congregations could often be a resource and refuge for members of the pagan community. So uncertain about the fruitfulness of my paganism and sure that I couldn't maintain a nourishing relationship with my Catholic childhood, I sought out Unitarian Universalism in college. And in keeping with the unpredictability of Iowa summers, what an unforeseeable growing season my time in college was. While I grew under the care of a new Unitarian Universalist community and came to understand myself as a person committed to this tradition, I encountered others who were equally impactful in my growth. As a student, I came under the mentorship of a professor who was both a pagan scholar and a practitioner. For me, Nikki's example not only showed me how to be a more discerning scholar, but to be a more deeply spiritual person. To this day, I've been nourished by pagan communities within and outside of Unitarian Universalism, thankful for the spaces to practice, reflect, and celebrate. Serving before you all, I'm reminded how this harvest is turning out. The roots of my religiosity have grown much deeper than when I first planted them so long ago. The harvest is so far looking promising, but the results are not yet in. I still have my hopes and still have my apprehensions. These feelings are so equally great, especially as I continue to prepare for ministry. Whether you are a pagan or not, this is what I hope you will reflect on as well. At any given moment, we can be on the cusp of harvest, of knowing and not knowing, hoping and fearing. And in this moment, what roads are you crossing? What are your hopes asking you beautiful, unanswerable questions? What are your fears whispering to you as a friend who remembers? Hungry and trusting, how will you face life's uncertainties? Now let us return our spirits to a space of meditation, thought, and prayer. Breathe in and feel the firmness of the ground below you. Here in this season, we are at a crossroads. At the crossroads of fall and summer, harvest and growth, loving and dying. At the beginning of the service, you took a seed, fruit of our golden harvest. Feel the kernel in your hands. Turn it over in your fingers. This is the hope we carry into the harvest. Long ago, we planted other seeds, and these kernels are the good that has come to bear fruit. This is the bountiful harvest you hold in your hand as you move on in your life. Some kernels will become the food that nourishes our bodies. Some kernels will become what we store close over the long winter, planting new hopes in the spring. What do you hope for? What have you harvested? Call out Tell me now, quietly at first and growing louder, what is your harvest? My love, my love, my love, my love, my love. Eating the fruit, our bodies are one with the earth. This is our harvest. May we carry it out into the world. Take a breath in. Let it out slow. Open your eyes. So may it be.